Cambridge House Live. I'm Vanessa Collette here at the Canadian Investor Conference, Toronto. I'm happy to be joined by Thom Calandra, editor of the Calandra Report. Thom, it's great to see you.
Vanessa, always great to see you here.
Now, Thom, let's talk about MarketWatch. You founded one of the largest financial site ever made. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, that's a surprise question. I like it. You know, we're going back now to 1995, 1996. We got lucky, several of us in Silicon Valley and in San Francisco. The internet was just starting. You know, there was no huge financial news service for ordinary people. So MarketWatch became, over 10 years, the largest financial news site ever, and also a television and radio company. And then finally gets bought by Dow Jones in 2004 for about $520 million.
So when you founded MarketWatch, did this come out of a passion of yours? Are you passionate about investing in financial news?
Oh, always have been since about 1984, 85. But remember, I was a journalist. I had been working at Bloomberg in London, and a former editor of mine at the San Francisco Examiner/Chronicle called me up one day, and it all came together. We got very lucky. And also our timing was impeccable because, you know, back in 1995, 96, there was really not a lot going on when you talked about the World Wide Web and news. And thanks to my training as a journalist and also as a financial journalist, Bloomberg and in other venues, it became pretty easy to figure out that we had an editorial product that could go with the data. Right. We already had owned the data through another company.
Okay.
And so people naturally turned to us, and it began to snowball. We did partnerships with CBS, the television network in the United States.
How did that come about? How did the partnership with CBS?
Well, they took. It was not an easy process, and because you have to remember, television back in those days was grappling. So were newspapers with the idea of the internet. And they were very nervous, but they took about a third of the equity of MarketWatch.com in return for having that. In return, we got to put their name on it. It was an expensive process for us, but it led to a massive IPO. I mean, I could tell you some stories about the IPO that would blow you away. You know, priced at $7 or $8, the pricing goes up to $17 on the first day. I think this is 99, or it was the first internet IPO in 5 months, right? And where does it open? $138. Wow. You know, that kind of thing.
Wow.
But of course, then, like everything in the internet, from 99 or 2000 to about 2003, 2004, lower and lower and lower. But we believed all the time. And in fact, when we sold it to Dow Jones in 2004, it was the largest financial internet news site, and it's still the largest financial internet news site for individual investors.
So Thom, what advice would you give someone who was maybe starting up a similar kind of .com or financial news site? You know, what advice would you give someone like that?
Oh, Vanessa, you know some of my history because we know each other, and I know what you've done with GoldSeek and your companies there. But and you know that I've turned a lot toward resources in the past 5 or 6 years, which has been a painful process. I can tell you that. We live at Ground Central. Right? We live in Tiburon, California, which is right outside San Francisco. Everyone in our neighborhood, except for us, everyone in southern Marin County in San Francisco, it seems, except for us, is in technology. On our right-hand side, we have the former DoubleClick guy, who now is a high muckety-muck at Google. This is literally. On our left-hand side, we have the Cisco Systems person who came to the company from the takeover of a web conferencing thing. We're the only one. In fact, the other day I had come home from a mining trip, and I said to my wife, I said, you know, we have the usual stickers on your garage. I hate to say it, but Barack Obama, we're like Ground Central for Barack Obama and stuff like that. And I said, my friend Ron Shore gave me this. It says mining supports us. And my wife said, you're not going to put that on our garage. Are you kidding? You know, people are going to come in and say, oh my gosh, your husband's in mining? Right. You know, and we're surrounded by technology freaks.
So
here it is, you know, it's mining supports us, right? Well, I'll tell you something, right now mining supports me, even though, like most people in that sector, it's very painful the past 3.5 years.
Right.
But I'm trying to marry a little bit of technology with a lot of mining, and there are companies doing that. You know, by the way, we talk about one of the exhibitors here was Kaizen Discovery,
Kaizen, right.
and Kaizen's really using HPX technology.
They're putting tech and mining together.
Yeah, it's great. Of course, I own those shares.
Right.
I own a lot of shares of Kaizen, but I like it because one, it gives you access to a company that you can't buy publicly. Two, they have some very interesting geophysical technics.
Right,
that
and
they're
it's
marrying.
Robert Friedland's protege. Is it Matthew Horner's the CEO of that company?
That's right. Matthew Horner's the CEO. Robert and his Ivanhoe team and other entities in Singapore and elsewhere control HPX. It's very interesting. I've been a very long-term shareholder of Ivanhoe Mines,
Right.
the one in Africa.
Well, this is a great way that you've kind of married your technology interests with your mining interests, and you started in tech, went to mining. What do you think of the tech boom now? Are you going back to tech now, or are you sticking with the mining?
We have 2 tech holdings at home, and for my audience at the Calandra Report, 2 tech holdings out of 52.
Everything
Okay.
else is mining.
Yeah, there's one bank in there, and then we inherited 8 blue chips from my father-in-law, my wife's dad, and we still have those blue chips, but that was only a very recent development.
So you're sticking with the mining companies for now.
Yeah, and the 2 tech are BioCryst Pharmaceutical, and I own BioCryst and have for years because of influenza, because of the Ebola virus, because of
Right.
leukemia. We had a son who died from leukemia, and because of its work with gout, angioedema. And then there's another company I'm very involved with and have worked as a freelancer with that's from Silicon Valley, and I know the principals, and it's called Sizerex.
Is it also life sciences?
No, that one is actually a computer systems integrator. So they're
Okay.
becoming the next, what you would call FireEye. FireEye is an example of a very successful company that has cobbled together computer systems integrators. So Sizerex now owns companies like Air Patrol and Shum. They do it all. They do cloud computing, mobile security. One day you're going to wake up and find that Air Patrol's on your iPhone. And it's so Sizerex has been a great find for us as a writer and also as an investor.
So what do you think of some of the valuations that we're seeing in tech right now? You
Right.
had the Alibaba IPO. What's your take on that?
A friend of mine, you may even know him, but I won't mention his name here. He sent me a picture. He's on the plane to New York with Jack Ma
Oh, wow.
from Hong Kong. So, in the old days, by the way, you could meet Jack Ma. You probably still can. He's very approachable. Compact guy who is very gregarious. But in the old days, he was just schlepping around at all these tech conferences, just like everyone else.
Right.
Now, as far as valuations go, come on. Someone on one of the panels said, "Gee, you can't get high return without risk." And I said, "Wait a second. What are all these people who work for or own shares of Apple, LinkedIn, Salesforce.com? There must be 50 new companies, Vanessa, that are in Silicon Valley or in some tech ghetto somewhere in the world whose names I don't know that have a $10 billion market cap, right? It's amazing." And they continued, okay, I agree, there was a lot of risk when they were on this side of the chart. Come on, we know that, the whole Apple story and stuff
Right.
like that. But Tesla, Solar City, we can go on and on. I'm not criticizing these companies. It's just
You think the
not-
valuations are a little overheated?
Oh, I think they're insane.
Tech bubble?
I think the insanity when it bursts, hopefully it'll be good for natural resources.
Right.
But it's just inhuman.
So
I
if you
can't
look at
imagine.
Alibaba, their market penetration in terms of online consumption compared to say 80% or 90% in Germany and in the U.S., it's still a very nascent industry. There's still a lot of consumers that are going to be coming. So a lot of people see a lot of growth happening in Alibaba. But do you see a fair value point?
Well, okay, so let's talk a little bit about Alibaba and its links to China are huge. And I'll say that because I used to be an early investor in Tencent Holdings.
Tencent, right.
Now, Tencent
Incredible company.
I started buying that shares thanks to some very, very good advice from some very smart people in San Francisco who followed
they
all
have
this.
a chat service, right?
Yeah, at the time they just had that. And these virtual figures on people's phones in Hong Kong, the company was like worth $150 million when I invested. It was November of 2003.
Okay.
It's like a I want to say it's a $30 billion, $40 billion company. So that's the potential. Now, I sold it when it had become a $10 billion company. So I only made like 14,000%. If I still held it today, and I had a sizable stake, I should say we, to be fair, and we as in my family and also the subscribers. But so, I mean, I left some money on the table, but you know, it still is up like 140 times.
Right.
Right? That's the potential of China, and that's definitely the potential of Alibaba, right?
Absolutely.
But what's fair value for Alibaba? When it comes to China, all I know is that every time I go to China, to the southeast, to Mongolia, I'm there like 3, 4, 5 times a year easily. All I see is fewer bicycles and more vehicles and more craziness.
And that's going to fuel mining as well. So you're saying, you know, every time you go to China, you see less bicycles, more cars, the consumer.
Yeah, right.
Really growing
that
there.
theme has been happening in China for about, I don't know, 25 years, but now we're seeing it accelerated in places like Cambodia. Phnom Penh 4 years ago, when I first started going, all bicycles, even the tuk-tuks were pulled by bicycles. Now it's like you can't even find a bicycle to rent. Right? Because it's all motor scooters and cars, and everyone has a new car.
It's a huge demand for materials, and that's going to be fueling mining for many years to come.
I think so. I think, you know, you're seeing a lot more aluminum alloy. I am a believer still in lithium ion, graphite, and I think we're also going to see a lot of platinum. Platinum is my top thing when it comes to catalytic converters, hydrogen fuel cell cars, and stuff like that.
Excellent. Well, Thom, it was a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you, Vanessa.